Hello. Hi. Didn't really expect to be making a video with a voiceover going. Please bear with me. This is the first time I am recording a video with commentary attached. So if the audio is a little weird, or if I start to ramble, that would be why. But since the video I posted the other day about Law and Order Vex got over 1,000 views, I figured I would try and record a video kind of explaining the build a little bit, slash where I got the inspiration from. And yeah, thanks for watching. The 1,000 views, really cool. I appreciate it. Anyways, I got the inspiration for this build through a couple different other YouTube creators. I was playing a Kill Skill Vex build for a while, one of Lazy Data's builds. I really liked how versatile and flexible that build was, but I don't really like how Blood is Power works, where you get bonus connect damage based off your lifesteal, but only when your health is full. So as soon as your health isn't full, you lose a ton of damage. And then I saw a Retort video where he was one-shotting Subjugator and Thal with a throwing knife, Reverb. But he was spamming underbarrels, and I don't particularly like the gameplay loop of spamming underbarrels, so I just kind of put the idea on the back burner. And then I saw a Jay Dunna video where he was doing a similar thing to Retort, but he was using the mantra. And I also don't like how the mantra really plays, but Active Fire was in the game at this point, and I figured if he can make it work with the mantra, then the large burst of damage you get from Active Fire order weapons should also work, and that's what I ended up doing. So in the background, you've been seeing some mobbing gameplay, and that was my biggest kind of struggle with the build. I know some people aren't going to like how order weapons behave. I've tried to mess around with the skill points to make the build a little more versatile. There's about 5 or so points that you can kind of throw wherever. I've found the build just feels more focused and generally better if you just full send it into order weapons. You can more or less mob with any order weapons you choose, but my personal favorites would be the Goalkeeper, the Sunspot, and the Temper. Also, the Fisheye is really fun for mobbing. In theory, you can use any order weapon in the game. The Roulette, the Rooker, Lucky Clover, the Symmetry are all other options, but they don't perform as well from what I've found. So the clips in the background are pretty much my favorites for the build. As for the rest of the gear, 3 out of 3 Active Fire firmware. That is a huge source of damage for us and one of the reasons the build works. 2 out of 3 Skillcraft. This is going to buff your minions. This is going to buff your reverbs. This is going to increase crit chance for both of those things as well. For rep kit, I like to use a kill spring for mobbing with enrage on it. I have also found some purple rep kits with melee damage dealt plus 50% and enrage. That's pretty good for bossing. The best in slot though would be an amp and enrage purple rep kit. This is just going to give you an insane amount of damage in one burst, which will then feed Groundbreaker, which will then feed Reaver. For Ordnance, just a crit knife. For class mod, I use a Teen Witch. I really like the Teen Witch on the Kill Skill Vex builds, and I find even if we're not using Blood is Power, the fact that the survivability gives you and the amp that it gives you through a triple amp Watts for Dinner is just insane and too much damage to pass up. Watts for Dinner, triple amp, best in slot shield for a Teen Witch Vex build. For the enhancement, I'm using a purple order enhancement. It's a power shot. And then the passives I have on mine are gun damage, gunfire rate, and gun status effect chance. You do want to try and find gunfire rate here. It is the only area, skill tree, and gear where gunfire rate is going to shorten your charge time for order weapons, other than, of course, the active fire bonus. So I would say gunfire rate is probably even more important than, like, say, gun damage. You're always going to be using the crow sourced for bossing. It's your biggest source of one burst damage. And we're trying to proc Groundbreaker for the large one-shot kills. Groundbreaker is going to store all of your gun, action, skill, and ordnance damage over 5 seconds. And 20% of that damage is going to get reapplied in one melee hit. with all of your buffs, skill points, etc. reapplied to it. You then have a 50% chance to trigger a reverb proc, which is going to do 150% of your groundbreaker hit as incendiary skill damage. So this also gets all of your skill buffs from the skill tree. I know the card says melee damage, but it is skill damage. The card is just wrong, and this is where pretty much all of your bossing damage is going to come from. From the original video, you could see in the clips, we were more or less insta-killing everything with one knife minus Bloom Reaper / Subjugator and Thaw. So for the skill tree, there were a couple of changes from the last video, most notably prismatic weaponry. I moved the 5 points out of target prescience over into this, which gives us an extra 45% on-shot multiplier in a random elemental type. This only happens with gun critical hits, but since we're running Coven, we didn't need target prescience. It was comfy, but we don't need it, and the Coven is going to give us our crit chance. At minimum 10%, at max 30%. Then we also moved 5 points out of Fell Inscriptions and put it into Cold Iron. I know the gun damage isn't massive here, but since we're not using the mantra, we are only ever using melee damage for Groundbreaker. The melee bonus from here will help with Groundbreaker, and the maximum health capacity is nice. I just figured I'd try out Cold Iron to see how it felt. You can honestly pick either one of these and be entirely fine. It doesn't much matter. For the rest of the blue tree, just grab as much damage as you can on your way down to Reverb and Hair Specs. This is going to give you your throwing knife, your long-range melee, and this is obviously where a ton of our damage is coming from. For green tree, it's a pretty basic kill skill Vex build. We're grabbing Bleed so that if we don't insta-kill a boss, this will finish them off. We're grabbing Grave Sights as well as Grave Implements. I just prefer how the kill skills feel. It feels like I'm getting the most damage from these instead of saying going down middle tree. But you can also go down middle tree if you don't feel like picking up Grave Power, Keen Mind, Mortal Terror to make the kill skills worth it. For specializations, we are grabbing Groundbreaker, obviously. Makes the build work. Then I'm a gun. This is going to convert 50% of our gun damage into action skill damage, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it also applies to general skill damage. We are also grabbing Riddle You This because it is going to feed into I Am a Gun, and more gun damage means harder hitting Groundbreakers, which means harder hitting Reverbs. The last slot is kind of flexible. I prefer for mobbing one shot, one kill. This is just going to let you start stacking up excess damage so that you just one-shot pretty much every trash mob in the game. It just makes some of the weaker order weapons feel better. For bossing, I would go a Honed Mine. The skill crit hit chance isn't amazing, but the crit hit damage is going to be awesome for Reverb. So that's the build. I'm not entirely sure if I explained it the best I could. Although the gear might seem decent or good even, this is, like I said earlier, pretty vibes based. I haven't min-maxed it or really dove into numbers and percentages. I just kind of spec'd what felt good and tried to play into the weaknesses, in my opinion, which is mobbing. Tried to make that feel a little bit better than it previously was feeling. You can spec the skill tree a bit differently so that the variety of guns you are able to use is larger. But like I said earlier, I like to, I just wanted to lean full in on the order weapons because at the end of the day, I feel like the more focused the build is, the better it's going to perform. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. If there was any issues with the audio or any suggestions for general video quality stuff, I guess let me know. I'm not entirely sure when another upload will be. I just kind of felt like putting the first build video out because I thought it was performing pretty well and I thought it looked cool. So I don't know. We'll see. Yep. Thanks for watching and goodbye.